who dream the impossible dream, to fight the unbeatable foe,
to bear with unbearable sorrow, to run where the brave dare not go,
to right the unrightable wrong, to love pure and chaste from afar,
to try when your arms are too weary,
to reach the unreachable star. This is my quest, to follow that star.
No matter how hopeless, no matter how far,
to fight for the right without question or pause,
to be willing to march into hell
for a heavenly cause. And I know if I'll only be true to this glorious quest,
that my heart will lie peaceful and calm when I'm laid to my rest,
and the world
will be better for this, that one man, scorned and covered with scars,
still strove
with his last ounce of courage
to reach the unreachable star.
I'm going to talk about Mancha Launch just for a few minutes, then introduce the co-producer, Michael Linnett, then we're going to look at a very quick video, and then we will meet our quartet of stars. I was asked, as a New Yorker who's been based in London for a long time, to just say a little something about my own personal experience of Mancha Launch, which I guess began on Broadway in 1977. That was a revival that starred the original leading man from the show, Richard Kiley. And as you may know, the original Broadway production in the mid-60s, which ran for 2,328 performances, was a show that cemented Richard Kiley in, at the time, as one of the great sort of Broadway performers and one of the legendary Broadway performances. And a little bit like Carol Channing and Hello Dolly and Yul Brynner and The King and I, the part of Cervantes and Don Quixote were roles that he returned to again and again in 1977. Was one of the last, if not the last times that he played it. People here might know the show possibly from the Peter O'Toole film, although the track record on that is sort of mixed. But in its day, it was really a sort of Broadway phenomenon, and it's been revived without Richard Kiley twice in New York since then. Raul Julia was in Run Revival opposite Sheena Easton, who we all know here recently from 42nd Street. And then about 15 years ago or so, Brian Stokes Mitchell did a New York revival opposite Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio, directed by Jonathan Kent. I guess the sort of standout song from the show, of course, is The Impossible Dream, which everyone knows, many, many people have covered. But it really is a sort of beautiful piece about a fantasist wishing for a better world against the odds, and there are probably a lot of us like that right now. So, of the musicals that have occupied this spot, the spot coming up, April, May, musical spot at ENO, this is possibly the least well known, so one of the reasons I think to have this event and hear a lot more about it. So without further ado, let me introduce the man who's made this all possible, or one of the men who's made this all possible, Michael Linnett. Yeah, please do. So Michael, just tell us your thoughts about the show, how you got the show, what you're hoping for the show.
Do we have that long? I'm one of the two producing Michaels. My partner, Michael Great, is not here today because matron only allows one of us out at a time, so forgive him his absence. I know that my youthful good looks will belie the fact that I'm probably the only person in this room who was present at the first night in the West End of this show, Man of La Mancha, on the 24th of April 1968. Look pretty good, don't I? Don't shake your head, please. And it made such an impression on me. I've carried it with me ever since, and had many flashbacks to that wonderful night. And I've seen various productions since, but it's the only time it's ever been produced in the West End, 51 years ago now. It's been translated into 40 different languages, including Korean and Swahili. Don't ask me about that. And it's been performed all over the world all the time. And for 20 years, really, I've tried to acquire the rights in this show to bring it back to the West End. And each time I spoke to the literary agent in New York, either a New York producer had got an option on it, which gives them the right to bring it to London, or indeed there were London producers who had an option on it, which excluded me. And I made periodic phone calls to New York to try and get the rights. And then, after about 15 years, my phone rang, and it was the literary agent in New York, and he said, "Are you still interested in doing La Mancha in London?" It didn't take me long to say yes. I then started a 3-year negotiation, which went on, because the rights were owned at that time by the 3 widows of the 3 creators, and they didn't have an awful lot to do in their lives apart from count their money and argue with each other. So it took actually more than 3 years to acquire the rights, and in the end I had to go to New York, and I got these 3 venerable ladies, but actually it was 2 by then because one had died. I don't take responsibility for that. She was 102, so I think it's what royalties can do for you, longevity. And I got them in a room together with their lawyers and their hairdressers and their astrologers, and I beat them all over the head for an entire afternoon, and I left the room with the rights to do this show in the West End, and indeed on Broadway, and in Australia, which are the 3 territories we're inclined to work in. And it's been a very, very long journey, as you can see, so it's kind of magical to be here today with all of you people, and this magnificent cast that we've put together.
The quartet who are leading this cast, 2 performers sharing the role of Aldonza, and then, of course, 2 men who occupy their roles singly. We have Kelsey Grammer, Nicholas Lyndhurst, Cassidy Jackson, and Danielle Denise. Well, welcome everyone. It's a treat to see you all here. And to be introducing, I feel like I'm introducing to London a show that is part of my sort of musical theater background, but here seems almost like a question mark. Cassidy, you're British. Is it a question mark to you, this show? Did you know it?
No, I didn't know. I knew The Impossible Dream, but I didn't know the show at all. So when Michael called me about a month ago, actually, I think it was, I was intrigued. I listened to the score and I said, I'd love to play this amazing role. What an amazing role, what a gift.
But that must be so interesting to have a musical this iconic from the 60s that you're discovering 50 years later, almost as if it's brand new.
Yeah, that's exactly what it felt like. Exactly what it felt like. And also to share it with this
Now,
amazing talent.
Danny, what about you? You're not British. Did you know this show and this score?
Yes, I'm not British. Yeah, no, I did. I completely grew up with Men of La Mancha. Not necessarily every single track, but you know, I grew up at a time when, as soon as there was a great Broadway show, that cast recording came out straight, and we got it in Australia, which is where I was born. So yeah, Man of La Mancha was one that was around when I was a kid growing up. So The Impossible Dream is something, actually my mom has dreamt of me singing The Impossible Dream for basically all of my life. So it's her dream come true, that's for sure. And for me, just an incredible opportunity to flex different muscles because this is such an amazing story, and it's a very hopeful story, which we don't have many of in musical theater. I mean, I suppose there are happy ones and sad ones, but there are. This is a bit of both, and I think that makes it really special.
You mentioned flexing different muscles. Of course, Renee Fleming is coming this summer to do the Piazza here in London.
She is.
And she was recently on Broadway in Carousel.
Right.
I noticed that you and she have been tweeting to one another. Is it always been your dream, not impossible, to couple being an opera star with musical theater?
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up in that triple threat time when all kids were doing, singing, dancing, and acting. So that's been very much a part of my body of work in terms of my training, and I've been really lucky that I've found that it's come in really handy in opera, but not every opera singer does the kind of training that I've done. And so now coming here to a musical theater landscape, it's bringing back all of this training that I've had and that I've had experiences with doing musical theater, like I did the last night of the proms where I did the Julie Andrews medley for The Sound of Music with the entire nation, and I just did Wonderful Town with Sir Simon Rattle and the London Symphony Orchestra. So I've always had this musical theater time when I visited it, and now this is a full-fledged entry, so I'm really pleased.
Now, Kelsey, everyone here probably knows you from TV, and you've had more Emmy nominations and awards than most of us have had cups of tea. But I feel lucky in having seen you on Broadway sing in La Cage opposite Doug Hodge a couple of years ago here in Big Fish at the Other Palace, and now making your West End debut in this musical. What role has musical theater played in your career so far? Is it something very near and dear to you to do musicals?
It's my first experience in the theater was a musical. It was Hello Dolly with Carol Channing when I was 8 years old. And it was a moment of complete transportation for me. I just thought, oh my Lord, this is the most wonderful thing I've ever seen. And of course I thought she was the most magnificent creature I'd ever known. And just by way of a short story I'll tell, years later I was doing a play at the Roundabout Theater with Tammy Grimes and Amanda Plummer, her daughter. And a knock came on the door after we were done the performance. And I opened up the door and there was Carol Channing. And she said, "You were marvelous." Oh my God. My entire life cycle has just been completed to see you standing here. And then of course we became pals. Every time I do another play, she'd show up and say, "Kelsey, what are you doing?" She was fabulous. "Your wigs were magnificent. Who did them?" I said, "Oh, it was Paul Hunt." I knew it was Paul Hunt. She was my first experience in the theater and a continuing experience, and one of the reasons I fell in love with it. I have not done a ton of musicals, but I always kept it in my back pocket as something I wanted to at least explore when I got famous enough on television to be able to say, I'd like to do that musical. And they said, "Can you sing?" "Yeah, kinda." I'm an actor who sings, but I love this piece. I love To Dream the Impossible Dream. I grew up with it as a child, listening to it. It was recorded and re-recorded and recorded again by a number of famous singers. And it just is one of the most perfect songs about one of the most perfect stories in our sort of human experience. I mean, there's this Cervantes, he wrote a pretty interesting thing. And this tale, as told through the musical, is really compelling and beautiful and uplifting, and I think it sort of reminds us what it is to be human, tortured and staggering onward, rejoicing. That's kind of the way we are.
You mentioned Impossible Dream and the various covers of it, and it is amazing how many versions you can listen to online. Everyone from, of course, Kylie and Brian Stokes Mitchell to Andy Williams to the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. Do you have a sort of favorite version that you particularly like?
I think I liked Jack Jones's, and that was 68, something like that. It was done nice and clean, well done. It's just he was good.
But Kelsey, it's a hell of a song, as I think anyone would admit. Is it sort of going round and round and round in your head?
It has been for a while now, yeah. And of course, I sang it beautifully in the shower this morning. and having sung it, most of the day yesterday, I never quite got up to where I was happy with it, but it sounded fine. But you should have heard this morning.
Now, Nick, a lot of people probably, of course, know you from television, but I saw you on stage in The Dresser and here in Carousel, also produced by the man next to you. Is this becoming something that you're increasingly interested in, doing the odd musical here and there?
Absolutely, I'll do anything of great quality, and that's exactly what we've got here. I loved being in Carousel. I love being here. Colosseum's got a bit of a history with my family. My grandfather was here in '39, and I watched my wife dance here for the first time in, about '92, when she was with English National Ballet. So it's a special place for me.
Tell us about the roles that you're playing for people who may not know the story.
Okay, rather confusingly, I play a prisoner called the Governor, who's sort of in charge of the place, and we have to say that he's not a big fan of Don Quixote, is he really? Robs him within the first couple of pages of dialogue, and then I'm fortunate enough to play another part called the Innkeeper, who's he's well-meaning, but he's a bit of a jerk. Typecasting there.
Well, what are the vocal challenges?
Well, the vocal challenges are, apart from the last couple of pages of Carousel, where we all sang You'll Never Walk Alone, which I had to start off, but then when we had 50 members of the ENO with me, you sort of get a bit of help with that. No, that's it. So I've got a little song in this called Night of the Woeful Countenance. How we're going to play that, I'm not sure yet, but yeah, it's great. It's going to be good. It really is.
Now, for the two women, the idea of sharing a part is not unknown, and it does happen in other shows, but I'm curious how it's going to work in practice, and also, will you see one another do the role, or is that the kind of thing that someone never does?
If she's in when I'm singing, I will know.
I'm not going to
It'll be fine.
She's not going to
We'll be tearing each other's hair out. No,
Only always.
it'll be fine.
It's gonna be fine. Yeah, I mean, and also I think you can see we're two different people, so we'll bring different qualities to the role. And yeah, we did talk with you, Michael, about.
Indeed. Could you explain why you're sharing?
Yeah, why is that happening? Is it because of your opera commitments,
Yes.
Danny, or?
Well, I am also rehearsing. This is ambitious. I recognize this. I am rehearsing a new production with Fiona Shaw of Massenet's Cendrillon, but we were desperate to make Men of La Mancha work, and very thankful to Cassidy for coming in to be the Aldonza that I can't be on the days when I need to be performing or rehearsing in Sussex.
So thank you for being so super busy. I get to do this, basically. I'm so thrilled. I'm so thrilled.
It's going to be great, and I think it'll depend a lot on Lonnie Price, our director. I imagine that he will not have us sort of jumping in and out, but more rehearsing in our own particular way, and we'll want to do that with you as well. So we're open to do whatever it is that everybody on the team thinks is best, and we want to put on a great show. That's the top priority.
Well, what about Danny just singing mic'd for musical theater, which is something you're not used to? I know Renee Fleming, whom I know a bit, was talking about how strange that was when she was doing Carousel. What do I do with this thing?
I know, it is strange. When I was doing Wonderful Town, they started the rehearsal, and I was singing because I thought, well, I should start singing. This is my song. And so I sang, and suddenly the mics came on, and it sort of whoppingly amplified my voice, which was already kind of carrying, and it was very interesting because musical theater singers just don't sing at that level. And the girl who played my sister, Alicia Umfris, she started singing, but it was not anything that you would hear above an orchestra because she was completely raised with only singing through an amplified box. I think it'll be an adjustment. I don't know what that's going to entail, but I've sung mics plenty of times in opera and in musical theater, so I don't want to do anything to hold back or pull in my sound. I'll let the sound guys, who will be brilliant, sort out whatever the balance issues are with it. But I mean, it's not like I'm going to be like a big fat tuba over over everyone else. I don't think it'll be like that. I think it'll just be me, my voice, and please be a tuba. That'll be me.
And Kelsey, of course, one of the things about the show that people may not realize is that it's a play within a play. You've got a sort of structure to it. Maybe you could say something about that and how you approach, the inner tale and then...
Right, I'd be delighted to say more about it, but I don't really know that much about it, to be completely honest. I have seen the Peter O'Toole version quite some time ago. I think when it first came out. So my familiarity with the story is limited only to the fact that I have that experience, and I just got a script yesterday. So
You couldn't afford one.
I promise we'll be really well prepared by the time it happens. But yes, apparently during the Inquisition, Cervantes, as a writer, faced a little bit of trouble. Not quite an auto da fe, but maybe. And he pleads his case rather below to the other inmates, basically about, is it worth it? And with this play about Don Quixote, this story about Don Quixote, and acts it out and has everyone join him, and it's a very uplifting, wonderful tale. This is all I know.
That's pretty good, though. And I guess we should say, shouldn't we, Michael, that there is an important sidekick to your character who we don't have yet.
Indeed, and I've asked Michael to play that part.
Oh, good, Michael. That'd be great.
But I wouldn't pay myself enough money, so I wouldn't be doing it. That part is not yet cast. We're talking to a very well-known actor, and we're waiting to hear from him as to whether he's going to lower himself to work with these four. So that will be announced in due course.
We should open up to questions from the audience in a minute, but one of the weird things, serendipitous things that happens in London more frequently than you might think, is that the RSC just had a production of Don Quixote, Don Quixote, funnily enough, playing right around the corner. So you could have had a direct, segue from their version to this version. Is it a story, though, that you knew, or is it all kind of unknown territory, the actual story of Don Quixote? Anyone?
I read it in school.
You did.
Yeah, so, I'm growing up in America as part of our literary canon. So,
we know the tale.
Yeah, we know the tale. It's very, very
Nice.
I actually went to see the RSC production because I thought after 20 years and being ready to do it here, someone pops up and does Don Quixote. Anyway, after I saw it, I was absolutely delighted and reaffirmed doing it here at the Coliseum. There is absolutely no connection apart from the title.
So, should
Sounds
we...
intriguing.
Yeah. Should we take some questions from people who might have whatever they want to know? Yes?
Excuse me.
Yes.
Hi, Kelsey, you just said before that when you were quite young, you did musical theatre and you had a long time in acting. Did you have to go back into vocal training, or have you always kept it up throughout your time directing?
Well, when you do television, you don't work so much on your voice. I've always had sort of a good vocal production sort of instrument, I guess you'd say. But no, to sing, to get the elasticity back in your voice, you have to do some training. And I had to work pretty hard to get back in shape for Big Fish last year when we did that. And then I went to LA and did Candide. I'd never done an opera before, and I found that pretty exciting. Mostly exciting because after we did our opening performance, we didn't do another one for 10 days. I thought, wow, this is a lovely way to work. I didn't know you could do like 2 or 3 a month and have a career. So, but that kept my voice in pretty good shape. I've been doing a couple of sort of workouts with this fellow named Eric Vitro that works in Los Angeles and coaches all the big singers, and he deigns to teach me a little bit too. So, but yeah, no, I'm working on it. Where the second act left off, we have to button up a few things, tie up a few loose ends, have to deal with the fact that John's gone, who played my father, Martin, and but there are a couple of really interesting areas, and it's a little premature to discuss them yet, but
once somebody, you know, signs a check, we might be talking a little more specifically. To dream the impossible dream, this came to us a little earlier today, was honestly, I mean, I've gotten to live my impossible dream. It's a great thing to me, but I think if you're a human being, you get this thing. You get it. Whether or not your life turned out to be the way you wanted it to be, or whether it's bigger or smaller than you intended, we still have that thing in us that says we can reach for something unreachable, still try, and that's what it does for me.
There's a question for Nicholas. Kelsey mentioned about Frasier possibly being remade. Obviously, I know the writer, the creator, is no longer with us, but for Only Fools, can you ever envisage it happening?
Well, I think first of all I've got to say, Kelsey Grammer knows who I am. How the hell did that happen? That aside, which I'm still kind of reeling about, we can't. John's no longer with us. He was the driving force of the show, and we've also lost quite a few cast members now. I don't think I could do it without them. I certainly couldn't do it without John. So, no, we can't.
And do you see David much? Kelsey's one of his David brothers.
The risk
We'll have a David.
Oh, a special David. The risk of depressing everyone, I think the last 2 times I've seen David has been at funerals. You know, which is nasty. So we did at one stage make a pact that we'll try and get out for a drink at some stage, right? Planting somebody, you know. So yeah, occasionally.